Hall and Wilcox acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands on which this podcast is recorded. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and to all First Nations people joining us today.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cultural Inclusion Podcast. My name is Sheln Idowu. I'm a partner at Hall and Wilcox and I'm delighted to be your host for this new season. This season is titled What's in a Name? And we are talking, you guessed it, all about names. Why they matter, why it's important to get them right, or at least attempt to get them right, and what it means for people when names are pronounced and written correctly. So whether you're listening from the office, out for a walk, or on your commute, thanks for joining us. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Kenny Tran, a family lawyer and the principal and director of his own firm, Kenon Lawyers, in Victoria. Great to have you here with us, Kenny.
Thank you for having me, Sheln.
I'll be completely upfront. We're so excited to have you on this season of the podcast because your recent LinkedIn post in early March this year generated hundreds of reactions and comments. You posted to LinkedIn about the recent positive experience you'd had where the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia had correctly written your name, including the diacritical marks. Talk to us about that experience and what it took to get there, I suppose, and what it meant to you for that to occur.
Yeah, so I honestly did not expect the level of engagement that I had with that post. It was ongoing for the last 2 weeks, actually, and it's reached quite a lot of people, even around the world, looking at the analysis. So it's reached over 45,000 people overseas in England, obviously people in Sydney as well, which is amazing. I think the purpose of that was to really show how progressive our courts are moving in terms of its social inclusion. So earlier in late December 2025, the court released a practice note. The Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia released a practice note basically announcing that if a practitioner would like their name pronounced a certain way, that they can feel free to let the case manager and the court know so that it is pronounced the correct way. And so I thought at that point it was quite progressive for the court to do so, because obviously you have in the family court system a lot of multicultural, culturally and linguistically diverse communities utilizing this court system, and it feels good to know that the court is making that effort to make our communities heard. Historically, for me, I've been using the diacritics in my name since I've started practicing. I worked with a colleague at a community legal centre where we worked with very vulnerable ethnic minorities and communities. And it was a way back then for those communities to know that, hey, I speak the language, and this is by me using the diacritics, I'm showing you that I'm approachable and you can come to me as a Vietnamese speaking lawyer.
Absolutely.
So I had quite a few Vietnamese clients, referrals coming to me because they knew I could speak the language. And when you can speak the language, that level of client engagement is so much more better, I suppose. It makes the client feel more comfortable. So for us back then, it was just a matter of making clients feel heard, being approachable for clients. As I continued to practice, it also, for me personally, in the Vietnamese language, this one name could be pronounced in 4 different ways. So without the diacritics, you could completely butcher the name. And I've done that many times with my Vietnamese clients. The name Thuy is Thuy. It's very common in Vietnamese language, and you could pronounce it in 4 different ways. So I often get corrected by my clients for doing so. And as along the way, I think it's having the diacritics in there just makes it easier for people like myself to make sure I'm pronouncing people's names correctly. It also comes to a level of pride in your cultural and background.
Absolutely.
I did a leadership program early in my career, and now I'm a board member of that program. It's called the Dual Identity Leadership Program, and we really promote that cultural pride in when you come from, but also acknowledging your dual identity as a Australian, Vietnamese, Australian, Chinese, or wherever your ethnic background comes from. So I think being able to show that you embrace that language and you embrace all that comes with it is just, it makes people feel heard all around you.
Yeah. And I think what you described, the use of the diacritical marks and just the significance of them in such a tonal language, it signposts to your clients, this is a safe space. I think we sometimes forget how intimidating the legal field can be for lay people. It's very confronting to be speaking about deeply personal matters to a stranger, to be going to these architectural feats of brilliance, these buildings, and being expected to talk about personal matters in open court. So just that small step, that seemingly small step of signposting from the get-go to your clients, I know your language, I speak your language, and you can feel comfortable with me. It really helps to bridge that gap. I wonder also whether, you said earlier, I think 45,000 reactions globally, or LinkedIn impressions, I think is what the stats call it, globally to this post. And you said you weren't anticipating that. Does that signal to you that your post, it really hit home for a range of people in the legal industry and outside of it as well, in other professional settings, that I've been grappling with that same issue, how to pronounce my name correctly? Do I even bother to correct people on pronouncing my name correctly, or do I just let it go? If you're in a legal field, are you concerned about correcting a judicial officer in how to say your name? Do you think that was part of the reason that you had such a huge response to your post?
It's very interesting. Personally, I think the reason why there was such a huge level of engagement was the fact that the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia, the second topmost court in Australia, is beginning to recognize people and people of culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. And it's not like having your name said correctly at a Boost Juice. This is the utmost recognition that you could get pretty much as someone of a cold background.
Yes.
So I think it was very monumental. I would say it was a landmark moment for me, and I think it is so important that the court, one of the highest courts of our country, is making our communities feel heard in this way, and making that conscious effort towards multiculturalism it's resonating with people. And a lot of people I know would say they won't bother to correct their names because it is just in too hard basket.
Yep.
But it's just that small little effort that makes a difference. 5 years ago, when I first started using the diacritics in my name, there was a few legal practitioners that would use it in responding correspondence. And I thought it was very thoughtful and intentional that they did that. For the court to do that, as I said, it was just a shocking moment, like pinch me sort of thing. And I know it's thanks to the court staff, and I send my deep gratitude to them, but I think it makes a huge difference to our communities, our multicultural communities, to have the highest court progress this way.
Kenny Tran, family lawyer and trailblazer. What next?
I definitely did not expect it for this to have the level of engagement, but everyone, I think, was very reciprocal of what the court's doing. There was no sort of hate or negative comments towards what's been done. So I think it's been accepted widely by a lot of the audiences that have viewed this. And I think rightly, because it doesn't have to apply to an ethnic name. It could be any name, really. And pronouncing someone's name correctly is just the right thing to do. It's not hard. It's just making that conscious effort for that person to feel more welcomed, more personable. when you
Hmm.
approach them.
And that they are individually recognized for who they are rather than just a blanket, oh, whatever your name is. So tell me, because when I was looking at your website, I can see it says Kenny and then in brackets, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong because I don't know the diacritics, Hung Tran.
Yep.
So is Kenny the name, is Kenny a name that you chose for yourself, an English name that you chose for yourself, or is that something that your parents gave you?
It's definitely in there in my birth certificate. So
Uh-huh.
growing up, Vietnamese names are pretty much spelt backwards. So my actual name legally is Hum Tan Kenny Jung, and it's got the Kenny in there, which I've been recognized. I identify as Kenny in my working social circles. It's only in my intimate cultural community that I'm known as Hum.
Mm,
But as a solicitor, I have to be legitimate, and on the bar roll, I'm recognized as Hum Jung. So for clients to, if they needed to look me up to find a legitimacy of me, they would have to look up my actual name.
so Kenny is part of your, what would you say the demographic or the percentage is of people that call you Kenny versus call you Hum?
Maybe 70-30, 30%
Okay.
being my own community. Whoever calls me up, if they're a Vietnamese client, they tend to call me by my Vietnamese name
Yep.
first. And in family settings, I'm known as Hum.
Okay.
Growing up, I've always been known as Kenny. It's just easier to say. There were jokes made when I grew up introducing myself as Hung because I could not be bothered correcting people to say the right name. And so I used to always shy away from introducing myself as Hum or Hung. It just made more sense to say Kenny. But nowadays, I do embrace both depending on who I speak to. So if it's a community member of my own background, it is easier and more personable for them to know me as my Vietnamese name.
And then tell us, what does your name mean?
My name is Hum Tan Kenny Jung, and Tran, I'll just use the easy English way of saying it for now. Tran
Uh-huh.
is just the dynasty, the Tran dynasty, which
Hmm.
is the imperial dynasty. Tan is my middle name. Tan is means successful or succeed, and Hum or Hung is heroic. So if you put it all together, it's the successful hero in Vietnamese
Wow.
terms. It's funny because
Wow.
whenever I meet a Vietnamese person and they ask me what my name is, they always immediately respond with, "Oh, you're a hero."
And then you point them to your LinkedIn post and you say, yes, yes, I am. Have you
Yeah.
seen this? 45,000 globally. Yes, I am a hero. Thank you for acknowledging.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you get into law, Kenny? What
I
made you study it?
A bit of an accident. It started with doing well in legal studies in high school, having a good legal studies teacher who coached the way and guided the way towards a legal pathway. Initially, naively, I was a young Kenny that thought maybe I could be the first Prime Minister of Australia of Asian ethnicity. And so the legal profession was just a pathway to that. All of our
Mm.
MPs would have a legal background. And so I chose that profession, naively thinking that is the pathway. And I suppose politics has always been an interest for me, and it still is. But now I'm stuck into the legal pathway, and it came about as a result of getting my first job as a paralegal in a local suburban law firm. And I was fortunate enough to have a good working team, good principal lawyer to work with, my colleagues who were solicitors at the time as well. And they really shaped my pathway and journey towards family law. My principal lawyer that I first worked for, he's deceased now, but he was very bright. He was at the age of 77, 78. And so he did play a role in sparking my interest in family law, along with my other colleagues who also, I would say, contributed to that interest. And so I chose family law as a practice because it touches on pretty much quite a few various areas of law, such as wills and estates, commercial, property, and you get a bit of everything without having to overextend yourself in numerous areas of laws. And naturally, coming from a customer service facing working background, I've been working since I've been the age of 15, as soon as I could, worked in customer service, hospitality. Family law just made sense because it's the same thing. You're facing real people, you get to communicate with real people, and I get to be a problem solver. So it just happened to be that way. Sham, what did you think of that post when you first saw it, and what was your reaction, and what sparked your interest in reaching out?
Yeah, great. What did I first think? So it was a Friday morning when I was scrolling through LinkedIn, and you and I weren't LinkedIn connections at that stage, but someone in my network had liked it. So I scanned over it and I saw that a federal court had recognized diacritical marks, and my brain immediately went, oh, this is interesting, because just in the past 6 to 12 months, a colleague and I had been speaking about the significance of names and really the difficulty that can be apparent in legal circles in Australia, where you practice in the law, but your name is not a quote unquote typical Aussie name. And so that's what had really triggered us to start this season of the podcast. So then when I saw your post and saw how you had beautifully articulated the significance of the court getting it right and why it was important to have the diacritical marks in terms of the tonal language, that it changes the word, that it changes the meaning of the word and how you say the word. All of my senses were pinging off thinking, we need to have Kenny on this podcast. So yeah, that's how your post came to me.
And what do you do what approach do you take to correct people to pronounce your name correctly? Or what are the methods that you could utilize personally in your cultural background?
I am getting a lot better at being assertive about corrections. And assertive doesn't mean aggressive. I think when I was younger, I was hesitant to correct people saying my name incorrectly. So if someone said Sun or Sen or Sean, I would probably just go along with it because they knew who they meant and I knew who they meant. But in the last 10 to 15 years, I've become a lot more confident in saying it's actually pronounced Sheln. And I give them little tips. It's like saying shell with an N on the end. That's how you say it. And most of the time, I get a good reception to that. Very rarely will I get someone saying, oh, I don't think that's right. It can't be Sheln because there's no H in it, in which case then I go down to my usual lines of there's no H in Siobhan, there's no H in Sinead, there's no H in Sade, and yet here we are. This is how you say my name, and this is why you say it this way. But most of the time, people are really receptive to being corrected. And on another episode of the podcast, the guest and I speak about the courage that is involved in correcting people and feeling bold enough, brave enough to correct someone when they say your name poorly.
Yeah, I definitely think for our profession, it's important that we are representative of the communities that are in the community that makes up the fabric of multicultural Australia. And we're in a special position where we can embrace that, especially in these times of division and chaos in the world. I think we do have a role to play in promoting that multicultural fabric of Australia. So I think it's important that we play that role and we embrace every culture, regardless of which continent they come from. I think everyone would think highly of someone who embraces and promotes multiculturalism as a legal profession. I would want to also add the first time that I was ever asked for the correct pronunciation of my name was when I graduated from my university degree. And as part of the ceremony, they asked you what is the correct way to spell your name and phonetically spell it. And so at the time, I took the opportunity. That was the first opportunity I've ever had in my life where someone would ask me, how do you pronounce your name? So I haven't really had a bad experience in the law when having to give my first legal name, but that was definitely the first experience for me. And I always say to people, it's hum, as in hummus. The HOM at the start of hummus is how you can say it, and it's close
Hum.
enough for me. Yeah.
Hum.
And,
Okay.
and
That's handy.
I'm happy with that. I'll take that.
It sounds a lot better than my mangled attempt, hung. So hum, like hummus.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, hum, like hummus. Lovely to meet you, lovely to chat with you, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you have questions or if you'd like to chat more about anything that we've covered, feel free to get in touch. You can find more details at hallandwilcox.com.au or connect with us on LinkedIn. If you liked today's episode, please rate, review, or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you'd like to be a guest on the next episode of What's in a Name, please also get in touch. Thanks again, and we'll catch you next time.
This podcast is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as such. You should always obtain legal advice about your specific circumstances.